All right. Well, here we go. Ready for that? Another episode of the New Horizon. The New Horizon. A New Horizon, as the book says. A New Horizon. So I'm happy that you're here and that you decided to join or watch this whenever you see this. And that's great, because the book that Joel wrote, that we are given by Joel's writings and Joel's talks, is a great help. In fact, in 9 steps we get quite far. If we would all accept it and say implement it and demonstrate it, wonderful, great. So it is the essential chapters that Joel recommended in many of his talks. You can hear about that, and they're taken from all kinds of books. So it's from The Infinite Way, from The Heart of Mysticism, and so in other words, from letters too. So it's talks, letters, books, all that is assembled now in one book. Now this is the second episode. The first one was A New Horizon. That's the chapter 1, and the second chapter that we're looking at today is the Fetters, break the fetters that bind you. And well, that's a great title. And yeah, that's a great idea. Break the fetters that bind you. So why don't you do that? It's a great idea. It's wonderful. Yeah, why not? And so this is an essential part of our transformation, you could say, to break the fetters that bind you. But yeah, so we got to deal with something here, which is the human mind, the human conditioning, the human way of thinking, seeing, and all the, say, subconscious beliefs that you carry with you and will need to come to the surface in order to be free of them. How do you know that you're bound by something except if you meet it in the sense of experiencing it as a limitation? Before that, everything was fine. You, like divine ignorance, you could say. When it doesn't hurt you, you just don't know any better. But that's not how it worked for us. That's why you're here. That's why you look for something. You look for something that you cannot find anywhere, in fact. At least not outside yourself. So that's basically, say, the main thing in this theme, in this chapter, sorry. And it is a continuation of what we were looking at last week in A New Horizon, is in fact to become aware of the idea of mesmerism, of the hypnosis that you think human, the way that you think as a human being, because that's really good to know that is like what mesmerism is. Now, how does a human being think, and how does he see? So these are questions that will come up today, and yeah, it's always different how this comes to us. So it's like what is being shared in the chapter is quite something. It is not easy to read. It's not easy to grasp or to let it integrate is quite the revelation, you could say. It's quite something. Now this all comes to us in this chapter. Now I don't want to make it too big or too complicated. I want to keep it really simple, but also very practical. And this is also what Joel helps us with in the parts that he writes, in that what he shows us, and in fact the contemplations that he gives in this chapter. So there are basically 3 contemplations embedded in this chapter. Now we will probably use them all 3 because they are great eye-openers. And I will use those as a light to guide us through the chapter. Next, chapter 2. It's in the introduction of the book. Next, chapter 2. Break the fetters that bind you. From the 1958 Infinite Way letters, now included in The Heart of Mysticism, Volume 5, this chapter presents an entire lesson on the hypnotic nature of the universal beliefs that we accepted unconsciously simply by being born into a frame of life. In this profound chapter, Joel outlines how we may break out of these invisible limitations of the human scene by knowing and experiencing life in one's own Christ being, limitless and full of wonder. Now, here you see, this is a very short summary of the chapter, but it holds the idea. So it's like, okay, so it's the human scene, the way the human being thinks, what you were raised with, you could say, born into, and then the fact that most of these beliefs are unconscious, and that means like you're not even aware of them. And then the next step is how these can be undone, in fact, how these can come up, but you're not, say, engaging with them in order to establish yourself as a human being. This would already be one huge step in the direction of your illumination, you could say. Now these are, this summary is actually a nice summary for what's going on in this chapter. So like I said, we're going to use 3 moments of contemplation, just brief contemplations to get started, and use it as a guide for the further exploration of this chapter, because there will be a lot to discover, really a lot. And so in that sense it's a great moment together to fall back into a deep exploration on a very deep level of yourself, in how you have, in fact, how you have, described yourself, you could almost say, or made yourself. So all the ideas that are related to how you see yourself, while this was just, say, in fact, founded by your unconscious beliefs. It will become clear as we move through this. So here's one that is in fact already a way out of it, but that's also good. That doesn't matter, because you cannot force anything. So here you will feel something in terms of almost like a defense that you feel coming up. Okay. Nothing can enter my mind from without, because my mind is an instrument through which I function, not an instrument through which somebody else functions or through which world beliefs functions. My mind is an instrument given to me as my body is given to me, and just as I keep my body inviolate, so I keep my mind inviolate, free of world beliefs. I do not permit my mind to be used by suggestion, by outside influences, or by outside opinions or theories. I make my mind an instrument for the truth of God. My mind is an instrument through which I function. So this is what Joel suggests to actually contemplate in the morning when you wake up. It's like, okay, so this day it's going to be different, because I'm not going to let anyone tell me who I am, in fact. Like the world beliefs will not be dictating me as because I'm an instrument of God. Now that's a great start, of course. That's a great reminder to start your day with. Now that's really lovely. But like not being influenced by outside beliefs and outside activities, by opinions and all this stuff. I'm just asking you to look honestly at what is occurring during your day. It's like, well, I don't know about you, but are you actually open to what is being given to you in the news that is going on, or in world development, or in yeah, anything related to any political ideas or sociological developments or anything like this. Or let's talk about this for just a second, like all the Joel uses the reference of Coca-Cola in subliminal communication during movies in the 60s or 50s, in this sense. It's like they started to enter little pieces of say Coca-Cola advertisement, very short, like you couldn't even see it. But when they did that, when they put it in a movie and the movie would stop for a moment for the break in the movie, people all would, like many of them, would order Coca-Cola, while they wouldn't otherwise not have done that. Now this is the say influence from outside. Now, I don't know about you, but I get a lot of advertisement on my smartphone, on places where I didn't ask for it. Or maybe even watching this video on YouTube, you probably see advertisement before that. Like, not that I asked for it, but it is being put in there. So there's a continuous flow of information of you have to get this, you have to get that, you have to do this, you have to look at that. You know, it's like there's a continual suggestion of what you should do, what is part of you. And you say like, well, that doesn't influence me. But see, here it is. You can't stop that. You already saw it. So in other words, whatever you see will have it is coming from somewhere. Like it's coming from somewhere. So it's like you're in this cloud of world beliefs. When you turn on this thing, for instance, your smartphone, you're in it. You can't avoid being in it. You don't have to listen to it, of course, and you can listen to beautiful meditations and all this, absolutely. But at the same time, there's something that you put your attention to. So that's so great about, in fact, this chapter. It brings you back to yourself. Like, don't let the world describe you. Don't let the world define you. Don't let the world tell you anything, because it is not able to do so. It will only tell you what you want to hear about yourself, as a separate entity, in fact. So that was not a very good start yet. Like, we're not getting into it deeply enough. I'm just saying that what you are experiencing, what you are seeing, what is that? It's in fact a whole belief system that you grew up with as a human being. It's a whole belief system of, say, separate parts of an objective reality, that you can be somewhere else than I am, that you can be on the other side of the world, or that you can stand on the moon, or that you, at least there's a separation by definition in believing that there's such thing as an objective reality. And Joel says, in fact, there's no such thing as an objective reality. It doesn't exist. There are no separate parts. There is no opposites. Well, if you look around, all you see is opposites, right? If you use your eyes, everything you see is opposites, is differences, is comparisons. There's analysis, is looking for the things that are different because they come to your eye easier. And so that's why it's so important, you could say, to stick with the practice, because this is a daily affair, you could say. This is a daily practice of coming back to, oh yeah, wait a minute. This is not, my objective reality is not a fact at all. It is not a fact. I'm confusing it with facts. Joel says in the chapter, there are different levels of consciousness. It's like, that's why there's so much conflict going on, in which you see that the different levels are not communicating with one another at all. Like your physical level doesn't communicate with your mental level, doesn't communicate with your spiritual level. It doesn't seem to be one thing. It is a continual confusion. The mind, ignorant of truth, is an easy prey for world beliefs. As a matter of fact, everybody born into this world is a victim of all the unknown laws lodged in the human consciousness. So it's like it's literally being poured in with the porridge that you were eating. It came into your belief system, just like that. So now Joel uses the word victim, and that's of course something to look at. Like, as a matter of fact, everybody born into this world is a victim of all the unknown laws lodged in the human consciousness. I'll come back to the idea of victimization or victimship. Refuse to accept world beliefs as power. Yeah, in fact, refuse to accept it as a fact. Oh yeah, there's a little question there. Well, let's get into that. Why not? So, objective reality. You look for parts that are real. You still think that there are parts that are real. So, okay, so I'm stopping. In this objective reality that you think you live, where they're separate parts, even your body's consisting of separate parts, like a heart, lungs, and they not necessarily function together as one. And there's an object there, there's your pet, there's your spouse, there's your who knows what, your neighbor, and there's a government, there's a country. Everything is separated, like everything is separate parts. Now, what does this have to do with anything? Well, it has to do with the way that you are thinking. You think in terms of separate parts. You think that there are certain parts that are very real to you. You would by no chance let go of those, right? Like, you would not do that. Simply, why would you? It is part of your world, is what you think. Now, this is exactly where we stepped into last time too. It's like there has to be a motivation to change. Now, one of the most, say, common motivations to change is in fact pain. Because if you're comfortable and you're okay, you won't think about a change. So not realizing where you actually believe in, not realizing where you actually hold on to, that will never give you certainty, for instance, or security, but still believing that it can be there and that it could work out, like there's a chance that it could work out. And you don't like the idea in this, say, objective reality, you don't like the idea that there are opposites. So you like to choose one of the opposites, and it's like, yeah, give me the comfortable ones, give me health, wealth, yeah, I like that part better. And when I allow that and put my focus on that, that might come to me. It might be secured by my actions. Like, I will try to hold on to it in order for it to be there and to provide me with the safety that I'm looking for here, that I need for my functioning. I have every right to it, right? Like, this is a very normal way of thinking as a human being. So it's, in other words, you choose for one part of the opposite, because opposites there are. It's like, if there's wealth, then there's also lack. If there is health, then there's also disease. And they come with the same idea. They come with, like, it is the whole package. It is not that you can choose a separate part, even though it might look like that temporarily. So here it becomes really interesting. So if I'm comfortable, I retire when I'm 40. I have my house, my boat, my whatever. You fill in the blank, whatever excites you and provides you with a sense of safety. If you think you have accomplished that within a reasonable time, that you have some time left to enjoy that, you think you're doing well. This is very common to think like that in this world. You know, it's very common. It's like, actually, you made it. You made it. So now, what would be your motivation to change? Give all your money away, to give your boat away, and your house, and your all of this, to leave your nets behind, to follow a teaching of, I've overcome this world, and say nothing can provide me safety here. I'm looking for it inside myself. And why would you do that? Give me one reason. You wouldn't do it. And you certainly did not do it so far. You still believe that there's a possibility that this might all work out. Well, this is exactly the fetters that Joel is talking about. This keeps you handcuffed, you could say. This keeps you a prisoner of your mind. And it's not a warning, it's just there's no way of choosing one of the opposites without getting the other freely provided with it. It comes as one idea. It's like I'm looking for that in this setup. I'm looking for parts that are real that I can use within this dream, and I will have to have a good reason to let go of that, because I'm not going to do it just voluntarily until it hurts so bad that I will give in to it. Right? This is the reasonable thinking in terms of transformation, right? I'm not saying anything that would be really upsetting you, probably. So accept the fact that none of the opposites have any reality. So you hold on to something that's in fact not there at all, that is already over. And you hold on to it because you say it provides you some sense of safety that is ungrounded, like it has no real cause at all. So here in our transformation, in our infinite way of being, there's a provision of something that is your total security, that is your safety, and that will provide you, like it does in this instant, with everything that you need. Not everything that you think that you need. See, objective reality is looking for parts that are real, you still think that there are. So how to resolve the opposites that we're experiencing? How are we resolving them? Well, you have a way out of that. You designed the idea of death, like that would resolve the opposites. Like if I die in the right time, in fact, like then it will be all okay. Because I'm not running out of anything, I'm secured, I'm all this and this, and I know for sure that that will be the end then. So this is another belief that comes up many times in human way of thinking. It lives by the idea that it will end and it's temporal. It uses that, it uses that completely. It would not love the idea of an eternal life. Like, no, it doesn't want that, because then it wouldn't work. Then finally you will have to take responsibility for what you have been thinking. And we don't like that idea necessarily. So you think there's a solution to the problems as you perceive it. You really think there's a solution to it. You look for the best option in the conflict you are experiencing, never questioning the reality of the problem you perceive. Now here we go. You suffer the pain of your choice and think it is necessary. So it's like it's a necessity, it's just part of the whole equation. Yeah, I'll suffer the pain for it because it was my choice. I'm okay with that. Like I accept that. You look for the best option in conflict, in the conflict that you are experiencing, never questioning the reality of the problem you perceive. It's like, how is it possible? Is that really so? Is this really how I'm thinking? Yes, as a human being you do, yes, absolutely. So you love the idea of a future, like it will be better in the future. You love the possibility for a relief in the future. Time is a temporary solution to an unsolvable problem, as one master said one day. Time is a temporary solution to an unsolvable problem, but it's a temporary solution. Can you accept the idea that there's no solution to the problems as you are perceiving them? is your judgment of your brother. Oh, in your judgment of your brother, did you ever meet the Christ? So these are all like legitimate questions. You have a judgment about someone. So I'm getting out of it. So in your judgment about your brother, you have a judgment about your brother. When you see him, you have an idea about him. A judgment doesn't necessarily mean like you did that wrong or anything like that. No, just the fact that you see him as you see him is already a judgment. Because if it would be a whole judgment, you could say you would only meet him as the Christ. There would be no conflict in it. There would be nothing lacking. If that's the way that you look at your brother, wonderful. Then you, say, experience a holy moment together of reunion, and it's like letting it become whole and total. Fantastic, great. In case that isn't so, something else is happening. You're judging your brother. Just in the, say, within the reference of being a human being, meeting another human being, seeing the human being with your eyes, thinking that the way that you see him tells you something about him or her. And that is not so. So did you, in your judgment of your brother, ever meet Christ? Is then the question. It's like, did you see him as whole? Great, wonderful. If that isn't the case, you didn't see him. You only saw an image of him. Now this prevents you from joining with your brother, seeing him as whole and perfect, like as he was created, you could say. That is the whole thing that is going on. It's like, break the fetters that bind you. Your limitation, your limited perception of your brother is what pain is what illness is, what sickness is, what separation is. Why would you not let your contact, let your moment with your brother be whole? Because that's in fact the continual possibility here. Now this goes really far. This goes really far, and we're taking it easy today. So I will not go very much deeper into it, but you get the point of, oh my God, I wasn't even aware that I was doing that. Like, oh, there's so much to discover. I'm using opposites to choose the best for me, even though I don't realize that there's an opposite connected to it that comes with the choice in the first place. So you don't know, in other words, you don't know how to respond to any situation, whether it's good or bad, or desirable, not desirable. You don't even know what the difference is. Because when you choose one, you get the other for free. You think that you drinking a glass of alcohol has nothing to do with a junkie dying in the street. Well, it does have to do with that. It's all the same thing. Like, it literally is the same thing. So if you let that come into your, say, consciousness, into your realization of your temporal self, you could say, you come to the point where you see, like, don't want any of this. I don't want any of this. Like, whatever step I take brings me into fear, brings me into a deep sense of pain. And I don't want any of that, because I don't want to give that to my brother. And I don't want to give that to myself. So I wouldn't know which choice to make, because whatever I choose, I always choose the opposite at the same time too. So literally there's no way out. The human sphere, as Joel says it here, is like the human scene is in fact the embodiment of limitation and death and disease. Like, no matter what I choose, that are my only options here. And I think I can be lucky for a moment, choosing the best, having a better whatever as my neighbor. I'm doing better than my neighbor, and that gives me a temporal relief of I'm doing the right thing. It is just pathetic in that sense. Oh yeah, so does Joel teach, try to solve your problem? No, he does not. Does Joel teach that what you see is your reality? No, we saw that in the last chapter. No, it is mesmerism, he says. Like you gotta move. Your five senses will avail you no information, except the only information that it would give you is that you're looking with a limited perspective. So now here we go. We are actually coming into an idea. So we're actually coming into the next idea, and that is, how do you get out of this? Like, okay, yes, I do my contemplation in the morning, wanting to be an instrument of God, but in the scheme of things, how am I supposed to respond to any of it if my observation of all of this is not Christ vision, you could say? How am I supposed to respond to any of this? How do I do that? Now here Joel gives us suggestions, gives us instruction. And I'm going to read some of that to you. It's like one of them is, of course, refuse to accept world beliefs as power. Here's a part that I love to read. Everyone on the human plane is acting and reacting to some suggestion of universal belief. Humanly, we are antennas and respond to another person's thoughts, moods, and disposition. We react to one another's feelings, as well as to the world feelings and world tensions. When other people fear something collectively or individually, we fear the same thing. But once we recognize that tendency, we become less and less responsive to outside influences. Now here's our second contemplation. Universal mesmerism is not a power that can enter my consciousness. It seems to be a power and acts like a power only because of my ignorance of its nature. Now that I recognize it for what it is, I no longer respond to it. I no longer accept its suggestions. I no longer react to it. I am the temple of the living God, and all that the Father is flows through me. See, that's what this says. Like, universal mesmerism is not a power that can enter my consciousness. It seems to be a power and acts like a power only because of my ignorance of its nature. Now that I recognize it for what it is, I no longer respond to it. I no longer accept its suggestions. I no longer react to it. I am the temple of the living God, and all that the Father is flows through me. Now, what does that do? So, and then words come up like, my kingdom is not of this world, not a mental or physical world. My kingdom is not of this physical world. So Joel gives the suggestion of non-reaction is the measure of our freedom from world beliefs. Now, see, that is... I said this the last time too, probably. I can't remember exactly, but this is a profound training. It's a profound training to use every situation for that, because there is literally no exception to it. There's no exception to any situation that you encounter. To, in fact, it's all possibilities to use this. To practice this, in fact, to not bring in your human response to any situation. Well, that will be a great way to train yourself, you could say. That's wonderful, because there seem to be emergencies. There seem to be red numbers in the bank account, or there seem to be an incredible conflict coming up. Now, what do? Like, you think you have to make a decision. Now, what are you going to do? Not respond to it. How could that be a solution? Well, did you ever solve a problem yourself with not creating another one? No, you didn't. So it's like the non-responsiveness is a reliance, is an opening up to the alternative, you could say. It's like this is in fact attaining higher consciousness, not to respond to it in a human way, allowing it to allowing the situation to become whole, in fact, in itself, because it is. There's nothing lacking in that situation. You might perceive it with your five senses as an emergency, but it isn't. It is not the way that you think it is. It is based on your idea about what's going on, and that at the same time has nothing to do with what is present here and now, and actually the occurrence in its totality. So it takes a bit of training, you could say, to get to that, to allow that to be your only, in fact, certainty, to stay with, yes, I'm here. I'm not responding to this as I was used to. So in other words, you break the fetters that bind you. You responding to it in a human way would immediately bind you. Why is that? Because you made the situation real again. You really thought there was an emergency. So now you're caught in the situation. You need to respond as a first responder to the situation. No, you don't. You don't. None of this is so. Like, none of this is so. None of what the occurrences seem to be is really happening. No. So this is a great suggestion of Joel. It's a great lesson. It's an essential lesson. It's a recommended chapter. It is what Joel says, you got to know this, you got to learn this, you got to implement this, integrate this in your practice, in your way of being. That's what the invitation is here. Not to say ignore it, not to negate it with saying like, well, when I'm in an emergency, I'm in an emergency. And it's really interesting. So speaking from my own experience, I was in a lot of so-called emergency experiences as a nurse, but they were not emergencies. And I had nothing else to do than just to sit in it, you could say, and breathe and relax into it, so that you feel that your adrenaline response to the situation sinks down and you come into a restfulness where actually everything is still given to you, what to do, what to say, how to do. It's like there's no way of listening to the still small voice when your heart is beating at 120 beats a minute because you have an adrenaline rush going on in your system because you're literally in a panic attack. You will not be able to hear the voice. Like, it's okay if you do, that's wonderful, but like, no, when your mind is open, when you are receiving what is given, when you know that you're an instrument, then that comes automatic. How to respond, what to do, what not to do, how to move, how to let go. All of this is going to be given. Like, that is such an incredible gift available to you. Like, it takes away all the anxiety and all the turmoil and all the conflict in every situation, in your own experience of it. So if I still value what the world will tell me in an extreme situation, if I'm leaning onto the world to provide me with information about what to do, what to say, I'm lost. So when I go within and deeply come into a listening attitude, letting everything go, like breaking all the fetters that bind me at the same time, something else occurs. I'm actually in a real incredible intensity of allowing this to occur, allowing this to come to me. But that will be, say, transferring into a peace that I've never experienced before. So that is what is given here in this chapter. absolutely amazing. So continuing then with this, Joel says this: learn this lesson well. The human world and the people in it are victims of world mesmerism, victims of every negative, diseased, sinful, poverty-stricken state of thought that operates the human consciousness. And it strikes at us wherever we are weakest. It is a fear of disease. World mesmerism will take a form of some kind of illness. If it is a fear of lack, world mesmerism will take the form of poverty or limitation. If it is a false appetite, world mesmerism will take the form of alcoholism, of drug addiction, or even gluttony. World mesmerism will always find its way to our most vulnerable, our weakest spot. If nothing else, it will make us fear a ghost somewhere. Until it doesn't, of course. Like when you wake up out of this, when you recognize this. See, here's the thing with the victimization that I like to come back to. So now it seems that the world is dictating us something, or dictating me something. Now it seems that I'm a victim of a world. See, that fact in itself can only be if I allow that to be a power. This is what Joel says in the beginning of the chapter, so don't forget this. It's like, that is only a power, only by my, giving it a power. It will tell me, it will allow me to be a victim. I allow myself, in fact, to be a victim. So if I voluntarily choose to be a victim, then it's not a victimization, right? So this is good to know. So it's like, you cannot say like, oh my God, oh, the world beliefs are so strong, I don't know what to do with it. It's like, oh yeah, you do know what to do with it. You're a master over it. You gave it power, now you can take it back. And recognizing like it's here where it starts, not anywhere else. The world in itself has no power. Are you kidding? No, luckily not. It has no power. Jesus says this too, of course, like, I have overcome this world. Well, a world that is overcome has no power. It cannot do anything. It is literally, it has only power by my own making. So there goes your victimization. Your victimhood is now like dissolved. See, there was another belief that you thought the world could tell you who you are, that you are a victim of your beliefs, that you will have to do it this way because of something. Like, no, 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 don't let the world tell you who you are, no matter what happens. Wow. Okay, so I promised another contemplation. So what will be the next? Hypnotism is not a power. There you go. Do not make the mistake, however, of fearing the invisible influence, for it is not a power except to those who are either ignorant of it or to those who give it power. It is not a power once its nature is realized. We do not have to accept limitation in any form, limitation of health, pocketbook, or human relationship. We do not have to accept limitation in any form because these limitations are merely man-made beliefs which have no more foundation than many theories which at the time were considered sound, but which today are dismissed as ludicrous. We must stand on the truth that I and the Father are one, and that all that the Father has is ours. Okay, so here's our contemplation. Nothing can enter my being that defileth or maketh a lie, for I and the Father are one. I am subject only unto the law and life of God, the wisdom of God, the mind of God, the soul of God. I in the midst of me, and from that I comes my wisdom, my direction, my guidance, my protection, my sustenance. I turn only to it, and am led and fed by it. Nothing can enter my being that defileth or maketh a lie, for I and the Father are one. I am subject only unto the law and life of God, the wisdom of God, the mind of God, the soul of God. I am in the midst of me, and from that I comes my wisdom, my direction, my guidance, my protection, my sustenance. I turn only to it, and I'm led and fed by it. So this is how Joel ends this chapter. And so the next chapter is protection. So this is an interesting chapter too. It's like everything comes to me but by the Father. It's like it cannot come from anywhere else. Like the universe provides completely. And see, here was one of the temptations of the human thinking, is thinking that there will be a future relief or a future dissolving, like time heals all wounds and that kind of idea. Like, well, that doesn't really work that way. You will have to bring it back to right here, right now. It's like, no, this moment is perfect. If you perceive a lack in this moment, then that needs to change, because there isn't. If I see an emergency in this moment, I have to look again, because there is no emergency, no matter how it looks. If I perceive a limitation or a lack, I have to look again, because it cannot be there. Literally, this moment is whole, or it is nowhere. It's like this moment is whole, or it is nowhere, or wholeness doesn't exist, you could say. So it is just by me allowing that to be whole, to become whole, that can occur. Now this is a very specific point. It's like this is the place where the objective reality that we first believed in, that if I drop a stone on my toe, that it will hurt me, that there's such thing as like an physical nature of ourselves. If I think that is here, I'm caught in the illusion. If I look again and dissolve this whole idea, in fact see this idea dissolve because I don't give it any value any longer, like, no, this is my inner connection with my Father. Here is everything given to me, and nothing can take that away. If I stand secure in that light, that will be my experience of myself. And there's no exception to that. There's not one situation exempt from that. It's like it's all inclusive. It is that makes this path, like the infinite way of being, that makes this path easy to stay right here, right now, to practice the presence all the time, bring it back to letting this moment be whole and complete. I think it misses something. I think it's lacking something. I think something is threatening it. What can possibly happen in this instant if I recognize it to be given to me, not any kind of relationship with what I think about it, but just letting it be whole? See, then you see, wherever you go, whatever situation you find yourself in becomes, I use this word like a ceremony almost. Like this is what Joel calls your healing consciousness. You bring that wherever you go, despite your ideas about the situation. So in other words, that is operating right now in wherever you go. It is just by you thinking that there's something else going on, that you see a development of consciousness, that you see that there's still something to attain, that there's a motive that to change, there's something that you need to strive for in order to accomplish something, while you actually miss this moment that is already perfect. You know what I'm saying? It's like that. An important part of the infinite way of being, training, you could say, is bringing it back into the present moment, seeing that you have that all your motives literally dissolve in this instant by recognizing the truth and the wholeness that is given in this moment. And nothing can disturb that effect. Only in your own dream. That's what we call the dream. In your reality, nothing has changed. You're right here. And you bring that light with you wherever you go, in whatever situation you think you're in. So that makes it simple. It's a matter of practicing the presence. It is not responding to it by your human beliefs. No, of course not. Look what that brings us. Look at what the result is of that. It's like, no, absolutely not. No. So it's like being in the celebration of, this is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. I and my Father are one. Everything is given to me in this instant. I'm, say, literally throughout the universe, communicating. That's the only occurrence that is taking place in this moment. And it looks like this. It doesn't need to look any other way. Does it have anything to do with my perception? No, not. No. Do I need to behave a certain way? No. No. Do I need to try harder in order to get it? No. Do I need to give up my world? Like, what world? In this moment, in fact, there is no world. So what is there to give up or to leave behind? What do you think you need as a motive? What do you think you need as sacrifice or something? So I love this. So this is another essential chapter. Obviously, it's like a total essential chapter. Don't fall into the trap of responding to the situation as you perceive it, because you're wrong. You missed it. You missed it. All right, enough said. So I'm going to play a song for us to sit with this for a moment, to let it integrate a little bit, because this is so essential, you could say. If you can receive this on a very deep inner level, you will have a recognition with it. So that's all that's necessary. Thank you so much for your joining, and thank you so much for being part of this A New Horizon, and hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.